Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today for VR Gamescast. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by Don Hopper in Missouri as we discuss what people are playing in VR headsets. We're wearing Quest 3 with last generation meta avatars. We're using hand tracking and external microphones. And we've got Beck out there in Canada broadcasting this show for us today. Thank you to our patrons. That's Richard Meller, Mike Manzano, Holonet Podum, that's the developer of Smash Drums, as well as XR Developer News. I can see we've got Great on here for another episode, so
Always.
enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah.
And Don, what do we have today?
Well, Ian, we have a lot to talk about today, and some of it good and some of it bad, but I think we should start off the show by having a quick discussion about another classic AAA game that has recently gotten the full VR treatment through a mod, and that's Crysis. And man, I'm excited to talk about that. And then I think we should change up the tone a bit and talk about a more serious subject, and that is Orbus VR, the first MMORPG in VR, announcing this week that they are shutting down. And then, after that, I think we bring the tone back up a little bit. And I'm dying to hear about your time hacking the remastered Darknet. And then, I think we should end the show today by talking about something I know we're all really excited about. And I think that the community's starting to get excited about as well. And that's our new developer focused live stream that is coming together nicely. So I'm really excited to talk about this first subject, though. So, Crysis has been a part of my gaming library for so many years, I can't even count. And, back in the day, I actually learned how to build my first computer just to play this game. I mean, that was the big thing. Can it run Crysis? They've got NASA computers trying to run this game back in the day. And, even the NASA computers were struggling. So it was amazing to see it come back and be able to play it in full VR. Now, I did try it back in the day with Vorpix, we had Vorpix before we had all of these wonderful mods, and it did inject basic VR into a lot of this, but it just wasn't the same. And never in a million years did I think I would be playing this game, first of all, at full frame rate, but second of all, in full 6DoF VR with in-game body IK and even custom weapon holstering. I mean, this blew my mind when we were on stream last week, and I just realized that if I wanted my pistol, I just reached down to my hip and I had my pistol. If I wanted my rifle, I just reached over my shoulder. I mean, this isn't a game that's now like so many years old. It's like my kids are younger. So I don't know. It's just the things that the modding community is able to pull off these days is blowing my mind. And I know you got a chance to watch our stream on Friday. So what did you think about seeing Crysis being played in full VR?
It's really cool. Like, yeah, I'm watching it right now. I'm able to pull up on the stream, so I'm able to watch it again, and I'm seeing the responses in our comments. I'm seeing Dunadim out there, Arlen,
Hey guys,
able to comment out there, and we had the creators of some of the mods.
we did.
The comments on that live stream. They might even be on this show as well. And it takes a community effort, and it's so important that we have to keep talking about the community effort that's happening sort of right in front of our eyes, and there's something related in all of these efforts. Team B,
It is.
to VR, all these games that 10 years ago it was an embarrassment to imagine like an old flat game being adapted to VR. It would have been that poor of an experience to adapt a game for VR 10 years ago. And there's exceptions to that. There were cool things back in the day that have always existed in VR, but like what you're describing, Don, and what I saw in this stream and what I'm seeing in the development community is like reaching over the shoulders for tools is becoming a standard feature in most of these mods. Like it's starting to get there where like Oh, it has holstering? Oh, okay. Maybe I'll get into it now, right? Like
Yeah.
that's becoming a standard question to ask that, wow, how fantastic and different are we in the year 2025 compared to the year 15 or 2016 when PCVR was first coming out in 2016, and just the legitimacy of these mod efforts are so polished and so impressive. I watched you as just sitting near some trees, Don, like sort of chilling on the floor of your office, dealing with some tech issue. I think it basically
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. The
And
mic.
I'm. It looked like you're camping. It looks
Hmm.
like you're in the forest, even though like graphically, you're not camping, right? It's still the same. Like it's not quite Crysis photorealistic.
Oh
It's
gosh, no,
impressive
no.
though.
But I tell you what, it's kind of funny. I went back and rewatched the stream as I always do because when I'm in headset, I don't get a chance to see a lot of the chat. Beck does a great job at relaying what's important in there. But somebody had actually mentioned that moment as well because it was at a point where I guess I was sitting there trying to mess with the tech and get the laptop to work again, but I was looking out across the bay and there was a sunset going on. And, no, it's not photorealistic by any means, and it never was. It melted PCs with its level of realism back in the day. But here's what's blowing my mind, Ian. And, I have been watching these mods since 2015, 2016. I mean, I remember playing the original Team Beef mods, Dr. Beef mods like Quake and Doom on my Gear VR, if you can imagine that. But to see where they have come now, like you said, holstering. I mean, customizations that we only see in native VR games are now being brought into these AAA games. And, you know, I know that these were AAA games for their day and they may look a little dated, but the minute that you get them working in full 6DoF VR and you're playing it in a headset, all of that goes out the window. And some of these, I'm going to say it right here right now, are I'm having more fun and better experiences in some of these mods than I am in some of the actual VR games that we see on the store.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm seeing some members of the Orbus community in our comments as well. So welcome to the
absolutely.
Orbus VR community, every member out there. Call out, what you did, what your favorite moments in that experience were. If you haven't tuned into one of our shows before, we've got VR Download with David Heaney on Thursdays, and then we do this games focus show with Don Hopper here on Tuesdays. And
Hmm.
we are branching out from these two shows
We
into
are.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday pretty regularly. Don has been on the game stream.
We're about to be like 5 days a week, actually, at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, man, maybe. I mean, we're getting there. We got a game cast on Friday. We do our game streams and Gamescast on Tuesday, download on Thursday, a dev stream. We're trying to plot a day for that right now. So just all sorts of stuff.
So yeah, we've got these regular shows, and yeah, we're in VR here, and I've covered VR for more than a decade. Don has been in VR in headsets for decades himself,
Hmm.
and we're obsessed with this technology that we believe is the
Yep.
future. And yet, it's going to be heartbreaking for so many to say goodbye to this early social network. So we love being this place where you can connect with friends, remember the key moments of why you
Yeah.
used a specific set of software, talk about the larger trends. We do that some more on VR Download than we do on Gamescast from time to time. But there are some trends in the gaming area to talk about this week on this show, and Orbis shutting down joins a bit of a trend here. So one of the things we do is we read out comments
Hmm.
and we look for interesting ideas. So if you have a little essay to write about your experience in a specific piece of software, we do see those comments here inside VR, and we read those out and talk about what you brought to the conversation from time to time. So we love having that, and I think there's people out there connecting from the Orbis community. That's really lovely to see. So welcome. Don and I weren't big players. We don't really understand that MMO
Yeah.
very well. So explain it to us.
Yeah.
Explain it to our members and regular viewers who maybe didn't spend as much time in Orbis as you guys did, and understand what was lost. Understand what people are losing in the shutdown of this place. What memories you had. Try to put years to some of these experiences
Hmm.
because goodness, Orbis has been around for
It
a
has.
while.
I mean, and like, have you ever played? I did actually play when it first launched, and then I did jump back in again when Orbis Reborn came back. But I don't know. I could see where if I would have had time, that is something I probably could have gotten sucked into. I mean, at the time that it came out, we didn't have any MMORPGs in VR. I mean, nothing that you could consider a true MMORPG. And then Orbis just comes on the scene, and I'm kind of hooking up with some friends of mine. They're saying, you got to come play this new MMO, and I'm like, okay, and we go and we check it out. And I played it for a few days, and it was cool. We went on quests together, and the one thing that I think was beautiful at that time, because we had other games that were starting to kind of get toxic cultures in their lobbies. I remember, quite a few of them back then. But when you went into Orbis, it was more of a chill community. You didn't have a bunch of kids running around screaming stuff at you. People were just there to play the game and enjoy the world that they were living in, and crafting in, and joining and partying up in, and going and taking down, and having adventures.
So PK, so we'll cover Orbis here in a minute, and
Yeah.
we will read those comments over time. I want to talk about PK's comment before we go back to talking about. No, we already switched. Becca already got us over to
I think we
Orbis.
already kind of transitioned to Orbis, and that's fine. I mean, Crysis is Crysis. We will definitely talk about. I'm going to actually write an article about it, so look for
so
that coverage on Upload really soon.
Yeah, and we'll have a link down for our after show. We'll update and put the link to the Crysis cover so you can find more video, maybe learn how to install the mod yourself.
Super
Any
easy
tips
to install.
for
Super easy.
Yeah, what settings Don has, because it's going to vary, of course, there. So Orbis, and we have the people in our comments. So let's talk about PK Illusion. And they say that they're here to talk about the death of Orbis. I spent nearly 5,000 hours in Orbis. The community was unique in that everybody was friendly and helpful. There were PvPers, of course, but overall the community was there to help. And then here's this picture that's being painted for me by PK Illusion. Spending time fishing and listening to the relaxing music, actually swinging a sword and shooting a bow and arrow and drawing glyphs in the air.
Yeah.
Those sound like all the actions that were commonplace inside of Orbis for a lot of the members out there. And you can imagine if it's an MMORPG, right? You're doing those things, just fishing by the waters in some cartoon land, and then you see a couple of people come over a hill and they ask you a question, and you get into a conversation with a couple random people inside VR. That's kind of the dream of this technology to a lot of people, what we just described. And that's a place that's shutting down. Those memories are being lost in rain, right?
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Like Tears in the Rain. Yes, I know where you were going with that. That's awesome. And it is. And I can say that of any game, like not even MMORPGs. I mean, we have seen other games recently have, go through forced depreciation, and they still, whether the player base was small or not, these people have dedicated time and effort into being a part of those virtual worlds and games. So, I can understand that if I would have been, part of the Orbis community, this would be like devastating for me.
Well, yeah, so there's previous examples, right? We were here in this studio live when Meta broke the news that they were shutting down Echo VR. And that is one of those communities that you drop into an average lobby and you see some really ugly stuff really quickly.
That's what I was referencing earlier.
Yeah, but so that's not something I guess see in this one. And then I'm thinking of something like virtual reality 2, I think it was. That game wasn't played by a whole ton of people because it launched with so many bugs. But it was the theme of the experience was a metaverse being shut down, or like a social network being shut down, and pieces of it going offline, and like agents and people trying to chat with you and piece together their existence as they're being shut down. And I don't know, it's tough because that project in particular sort of saw the future.
Hmm.
That thing had already happened. There's already social networks that have shut down on the internet going back
Oh, several.
decades, but
Yeah.
it's weird to have it embodied. It's a different thing to have this place you were no longer
Okay.
be, right?
I could see that. I mean, yeah, because you are embodied in these. I mean, it's not just like my favorite, MySpace or whatever just shut down. It's like this is a world that I go to, and kind of going back to the comment about the fishing. I could see that as like if I had a stressful day job and I worked all day, and say I come home, I want to put on my headset. This is my method of relaxation to enter this beautiful world that was created for me and just go do something relaxing, like listening to the music, which was very good, by the way. I do remember that. It was very relaxing. And just casting a fishing line and just sitting next to a virtual lake and maybe talking to some people who might come up and want to see what you're doing. So yeah, having that ripped away would be like the city bulldozing through the park across the street from your house, the place that you go to just sit and relax. So
Yeah.
yeah, I get
And
it.
And I'm seeing like there's I think a lot fair people. I would love to hear people talk a little bit about the role playing that happens in Orbis, sort of like the way you drop into these roles. I saw all the actions mentioned very early there as like what swinging a sword and firing a bow. But when you spend many hundreds of hours doing that thing, how much do you feel like the person you've been doing those things for hundreds of hours at? And I think it's worth bringing up that like that's where the true power of VR is
Hmm.
even now, right? We go back over the last year, Batman, you become Batman.
Yes.
I Am Cat was at the top of the charts because you become Cat, right? It's
Yes.
very simple and very obvious.
Embodiment. Yeah.
Embodiment and role playing. And you go back a little bit further, you've got the big release from Meta. They threw many millions of dollars at the production values for Asgard's Wrath 2, but that's a singular experience where you have
Hmm.
to, roam across this desert all on your own. This is a thing where you could actually
It's
encounter real
right.
other
It's with
people.
friends. I mean, that brings up. You said meta and we were talking about forced appreciation. That brings up another one that was kind of a sting, and that was Powers United. Marvel Powers United. I mean, who
Listen,
doesn't want to embody one of the Avengers? Yeah, and
so Adam here, all right, and I want to think about this is really let's get as philosophical as you want here, like, and I would love like this is starting to get to the real fun of games and
yeah.
the real power of VR. But Adam's saying I once sent some new players on a quest.
Hmm.
Think about the dynamic there. What does it take to have an MMO that is so lively, that is so like that people are so embedded in their characters that they're handing off quests to each other in that way? Is
Hmm.
that something that's the dream ultimately of Horizon Worlds?
Yeah,
If
I
you
mean, it
go
is.
into the Horizon app, you'll find quests listed as a menu item. You'll find worlds as like another menu item, so you can go to specific locations inside of Horizon. My very big brain question is to ask: is Orbis dying because Horizon Worlds got prioritized by Meta? Now,
I,
uh, that's my broad
it's
question. I don't think Don.
it's a good
Let's let the
question.
commenters attack that
No,
one.
no,
Let's see
I'm
what
not.
they
I'm
think
not going to
out
say.
there.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's a good question. I was actually going to bring up PK Illusion was also talking right here that Orbis had events as well. I mean, he says I remember I held an Orbis Olympics a few years ago. We gave away prizes and had activities like archery contests, mage knowledge contests, bardic competitions. That would have been fun. The bardic competition, that would have been kind of funny. Hearing everybody sing, and the devs even pitched in for rewards. So I mean, community was really, really a big part of that world.
Ar- Arlen asking, I mean this with sensitivity and
Yeah, I
respect,
saw
but I've
that.
often wondered how does an MMO without a monthly subscription model sustain itself? I'm sorry I cut you off there, Don. I
No,
just
no, no,
wanted
no,
to
no,
give
no, no.
space to let
That's
the
a great.
commenters percolate and us to think about that question
Yeah,
because
no,
literally I uttered the
absolutely.
question before even I had really thought about it, right?
Yeah, no, no, no. And trust me, I get exactly where you're going because I definitely want to see what people's opinions are on that. So
But yeah, I love the descriptions of some of the community there and the way these stories are unfolding. And like some of the stories I've even heard, which I don't know, I heard stories of Rec Room, but like Meta does market research
Hmm.
extensively, right? Like, and they send little market research folks into various corners to find out what should we be building and what is working in other places. And it's devastating to think of all these littler efforts that, I mean, Don, if the creators, if anyone who was involved in like the actual development of Orbis or the other one, Zenith, that went
Hmm.
down, our
I was going
hearts
to
go
bring up
out to you.
Zenith, actually.
But
Yeah.
like the thing that I think really is frustrating is like these efforts did seem to like try to run on a skeleton crew and
Hmm.
even just servers only mode, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's still, there wasn't enough sales or enough of a runway here to warrant some of these things staying online in like really
Right.
in ways that people really wanted. And that's devastating to think of. Just, we talk about this, we talk all the time to, later in the show, we'll have E McNeill as the subject, and we'll talk a lot
Yes.
about E McNeill. I sent E McNeill an email letting him know that we're doing this stream there, but I don't know if they're out there in the comments or watching us. But that's a single developer, and the single developer is the story of the VR market in
Hmm.
many respects. We're going to cover some more here. We've got, I mean, we can roll into this. At the same day, that the same time that we're talking about Orbis shutting down. Fast Travel Games just
Yeah.
announced dozens of layoffs, which is absolutely devastating for a studio that put out 6 games last year under its brand. And then there was also Soul Assembly recently had layoffs, and we kind of expected this to happen. We don't think that's the end of layoffs and shutdowns this year,
I don't
as
see it.
we have another sort of recession back to reality of the market, as some ideas don't pan out. But what we've been harping on for a really long time is like, when Meta demands 30% of all revenue, it disallows certain things from existing outside of its fee structure, right? So Big Screen Beyond or Big Screen couldn't sell movies easily without shaving off enough money to go in the red. Like, they would lose money on each movie sold, where Meta would take some of that to keep the doors open. And so yeah, there's just this complicated thing where certain services don't exist, and it's devastating to see 2 MMOs go away that people really relied on. And those are memories. Those are
No,
the
it is.
first moments in VR for many people.
As I've been kind of scanning through, comments here and kind of listening, one thing that keeps coming to my mind is, especially with Orbis being the very first one and one of the longest running in VR, was it just too early? I mean, Orbis started in a time when we were just getting into standalone. I mean, we were just making that transition from being tethered to our PCs to having something that could run, low poly experiences like that. And I wonder if they would have come online in the Quest 3 3S era, as something fresh and new, or had made a bigger push to, get a bigger player base as Quest 3S was hitting the market and we saw the influx of people over the holidays, if they could have sustained a little bit longer. So,
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of people discuss the different efforts that are out there. I saw Mr. Lord out there saying Orbis was interesting. I didn't enjoy it as much as Zenith. And of course, certain things are going to click with certain people. I love the
it does,
description of
yeah.
the actions at the beginning of
Mhm.
Orbis, the focus on those verbs, those things you can do in VR. And the model in my mind, going back to this larger theme, it has all. I went to in a couple years ago. I went to my first Renaissance fair. I guess I went to a Renaissance fair a long time ago, but I went to a really good Renaissance fair a couple years ago. And it's wild to see the different vibe you get at a Renaissance fair versus going to something like Disneyland. At a Renaissance
Mhm.
fair, everyone has invested in their own outfits. They've brought uh, their own add-ons, accessories to their outfits, and they're invested in this personality they bring
I
to
get
the
it.
fair. And you don't
Yeah.
have that at Disneyland. You just have the employees who are invested in creating the magic of that place. And what we're hearing in our comments and the people who were invested in Orbis was a different model, right? Like
Mhm.
people who were invested in their characters in a similar way as the Renaissance Fair. Sorry, Don, what was that you were thinking?
No. You just started talking about Ren fairs, and I started thinking, have you ever been to one dressed as a Star Trek character? That's like the thing, you know.
Oh,
It's like you get
I've
dressed
seen
up
them,
as
but
an
the
away
away mission
team
is
with
a
like, and everybody's
genius.
walking around with like tricorders, like they're yeah. So I'm sorry, it's just how my
Well,
feeble mind always goes back there. So
that's funny. We've got all right. So you've got the wait till we have the VR mixed reality headsets that show up
oh, I
in
know.
those contexts,
Oh
right?
wow.
Like
Oh wow.
when you get
Yeah.
to the Ready Player One merging of the physical world with the virtual world, like how do we get to that? We talked about that with Beck a little bit. It would be really wild, pretty neat, like in our near future, to start doing
Timing though.
broadcasts where we compare some of those weird sci-fi depictions
Oh
to
god,
the
yeah.
real world examples that we have
And
today.
you're talking about Ready Player One. I mean, I would love just come on, man, come on, all of you companies, everybody, let's just do it. Let's just get together. Let's make the metaverse. I know that was like the buzzword many years ago, but come on, give us the Oasis and let Orbis live on in it. Orbis world. Come on, everything should have a world. Planet Doom, Planet Orbis.
Well,
Give
does it
me the
exist on
Oasis.
Horizon? Because that's what Meta is
I
playing for,
know,
right?
I
Right?
know.
It's got to
Yeah,
exist on Horizon. It's
it's
got to
got
be
to
a
exist on
world on
Horizon.
Horizon. Is the kind of the unuttered uh, feeling of pressure that I think that a lot of people are describing out there that we've
Ooh,
heard, but I don't know. It's being alleged. I'll put it that way, right? I'm
yeah,
seeing that allegation
yeah.
said a lot. We've got Henry Stockdale out there reporting on this and this. What is the theme of some of the comments we're hearing from devs? What is real? What is not amongst those comments? Because it's really easy to focus on devs who are frustrated by getting shut down, right? Like
Hmm.
there's plenty of people who like I don't know, they see free to play content and they sneer at it.
Yeah.
Uh, but I don't mind free to play content. It's just
I don't.
you have to be in a certain mindset when you go into it of what you're paying for and how long it's going to be around. Like, I don't know. If all the content is free to play, that's one thing. And if the trend starts pushing towards free to play or it starts eating at the content that people are trying to pay for,
Right.
that's when I start getting concerned. And
Well,
going up to some of the comments, right? Like, are we seeing? Is there a model for an MMO in VR that charges $5-10 a month?
yeah, I mean, if you had the player base to sustain it, I mean, I'm sure a lot of Orbis's players, I'm sure a lot of Zenith's players would have liked to had that option, But you're talking about pushing, and that brings up another thing. Is like, why don't I see games anymore in my feed? I'm so sick of seeing the Horizon worlds pushed to the top of my feed. It's just I miss seeing what is the best games.
I'm
It's
seeing multiple people who have said that Orbis got them through COVID, that it
yeah.
was their escape during COVID,
Ooh, good
and
point.
let's respect that and understand it. There was a lot of the VR that the Vision Pro that Apple went and built very much came together during COVID.
Hmm.
I remember if you go to look at the Persona experience, the way FaceTime calls work, I did that with a startup that Apple acquired during the depths of COVID in 2020, the beginning of that. And there's lots of people who, as that example, right, they formed teams over Zoom calls. They connected over distance. They started telling stories, watching videos, watching movies, like all of it forced through a Zoom window in many cases. Um, but like things grew out of that. There were lasting relationships made, and places like Orbis became places that people went to go do some of the things like I don't know. Real VR fishing is a great
Yeah,
experience
yeah,
for fishing and fishing in multiplayer, but each of you have to spend
exactly.
that amount of money on that specific verb in order for you to go fishing together, whereas in Orbis you get fishing plus a bunch of other activities you can go on.
Well, and it's not just a purpose built. We're just going to go sit on a dock and fish. If you decided, well, okay, now we're done fishing. Hey, let's go run a quest, or let's go climb that mountain over there. Let's go over to this town and find a group of people to kind of hang out with. I mean, so completely get it. But I don't know, it's a different experience. Now, I got to say though, I was reading through the comments while you were doing that, and Mr. Lord Beavis here has he's saying, if you could get the player base, I would not say a flat fee, but do what Elder Scrolls Online has done and have DLC that you can buy that expands the story every so many months, and then you have cosmetics that you can buy in the game as well. So some of those things could have also been, something that could have kept it going.
So Eric is mentioning for fishing, there's bait that's free, and it's a single and multiplayer experience.
Hey, Eric
and
Hartley.
Again, you can party up with friends on the Quest ecosystem. You can even party up with friends on Steam and get your Steam friends together.
I have actually partied up with Eric and played bait. So hey, Eric, how's it going?
But like that's existing outside of this whole like community that lives inside of one base world. It's like Orbis has been I don't know, selected for extinction on the base world list. It's only, I don't know, you're not gonna, it's gonna, I always think about how do we bring these worlds online after they're dead? Is there anywhere people who lived inside those worlds can go and just have a single player walk around thing?
I mean, or if somebody did try to bring it back at some point, I mean, I don't think this one would be as persecuted as Marvel was, but I mean, we saw a player base try to resurrect a game and then it got shut down again. So it's like, will the, what's the word I'm looking for? No, be very kind. Will our meta overlords allow that?
Let's go back off the meta bashing here a little bit and like just be a little bit more balanced about this. So Mr. Lord Beavis saying, actually, I know you guys don't love Horizon Worlds that much, but they have a fishing world that's actually pretty cool. So over in VR chat, they are implementing a age verification check. Right.
Yes.
In Horizon Worlds, they also have implemented age verification over the last 2 years. Still, the default experience across most of these worlds, whether it be Rec Room, VR Chat, or Horizon Worlds, is you go into them and you get a bunch of screaming children, and you can't really avoid going into the lobby and hearing the screaming children or cussing or some bad behavior pretty upfront. And we don't want that as our default first experience in a social VR world, and we can't recommend it to others until
it makes it difficult.
Yeah, until that's gone, right? Like until it's, oh yeah, you're just gonna find a couple people that'll help you out. Go find a mod. Go find someone in red, or find someone with a badge who can help you out, and you'll have a fine time finding your way around. Like there's nothing like that in any social network.
Well, I mean, what I like is I like VR chat. You can log in through the web interface, and then I can select a world and just drop straight into a world, and even tell it that I want it to be a private or friends only instance from the get go. So there's no need to have to go through that lobby. And with Meta having like the phone app, I mean, you can launch apps directly from there. Why can't I just log into some sort of private lobby on my phone app and then do the exact same thing? Say, hey, I just want to meet Ian in the fishing world, and I only want it to be us. I want it to be a private instance.
Exactly. That we want that to be the default route to getting online. And then maybe you can, when you've got a squad of 4 or 5 people that you trust, that you maybe know from real life, that you've brought in a trusted way, then maybe you can go and interact with other groups, right? Or
I mean,
I don't know,
even
have
if I start
online PvP games or base
even
building. There's so many things you can do, but
even if I start from the web interface, once I'm in VR chat, my trusted friends group and gets a notification, hey, Don's online, and do you want to join me? And then it says yes or no, and then I just say no, yes, no. You can come, you can't. I mean,
PK Illusion bringing up the word squeakers that we're all familiar with.
Squeakers.
At this point,
I avoided that earlier.
Yeah. So that's the word, right? We hate that sound. Doesn't like, it's like it's such a horrible first time experience, and They've got a ton of energy, so you understand why they're screaming and running around in VR. But like what we're describing is calmly fishing by a lake,
Yeah,
and right,
exactly.
that's not the same thing.
That would have blown my vibe. I mean, like the minute I'm just calmly fishing by the lake and I've got some kids running up, going, shouting some of the horrible things that they sometimes shout in there. Yeah, that would totally not be cool. So,
Yeah.
just again, private instances always give us the ability to have private instancing, friends
And so those are
only
getting built right
instancing.
now. Like that's those. So like that's a long-winded way of
Yeah.
saying yes. Those things. Yeah, Don's right. Give us private instancing, and the private instancing is getting built along with age verification
Yes.
into some of these platforms at present. But it means things like Orbus that were, just community built and well loved, I don't know, have to adopt or die, or like that. Like Meta is not going to be spending billions of dollars promoting and building all those tools to not push as many people as they possibly can to use those tools.
No, man.
And
I could see eventually, like, all of our homes are part of Horizon World. I mean, imagine, like, we're talking like down the road, obviously, but imagine, Meta is after the metaverse, so build it. I mean,
well,
imagine a situation where I buy my new headset and, you get your Meta home space, as we all have, but that Meta home space now I can walk out of, and all of a sudden I'm just in this massive online multiverse that is Horizon Worlds. And if I want to go to the fishing place, I, get my little Meta car and I drive over to the fishing place. And, I
s-
mean,
so
I
what's
could
the
see all that happening.
so what's the name of the new another Axiom game, Orion Drift?
Orion Drift, yes.
So Orion's Drift is this new experience from another Axiom, and that's the creator of Gorilla Tag, of
Hmm.
course.
Yes.
Gorilla Tag has made, what was it, more than $100 million, even though
Huge
it's
amount.
a free to play experience up front, I believe, right? That's all of the add-ons that are getting purchased. If you aren't familiar with what's going on with Orion's Drift, they have these space stations that you can go
Hmm.
and step foot in, and you're represented as a simple avatar. And you look around, and there's different platforms floating around for different activities
Hmm.
on the space station. I'm really interested in, well, what does it look like for Upload VR to pay, let's say it's $50 a month for our own space station,
Yeah.
right?
No, I could see
And we
that.
get access to, like, we grant access to a couple hundred or a couple thousand members who are who we're controlling that community. We're protecting them, or like moderating out the trolls, getting rid of them, disallowing hate speech, but not a huge million person
Hmm.
server,
Right.
but maybe a
Just
couple
a smaller
thousand
one.
person
Right.
server. And it's managed by a couple dozen people who are various levels of moderator and administrator. And we're paying for a whole space station that a bunch of members can out there go and join and do stuff inside. This is all like, I don't actually want to do any of that. These aren't real numbers, but it's really interesting to think about these kinds of models going into the future. There's things like Minecraft Realms that you can go and pay a monthly fee to have people come and join your world even when you're offline. We don't have many things like that in VR.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. So just looking through the comments, and actually, Lord Beavis here is saying that private instancing is already available in Horizons worlds. You can create a private world and then invite whoever you want to it, but the default is still to load into the public lobby, and that's exactly, I think, what we were talking about. Is that that's what we don't want. We want to be able to just load directly into the world that we select without having to go through that public instancing first. So
And then, Mr. Lord is mentioning that, yeah, this is available in Horizon, this private instancing, and it is also there in, like, it's getting built in VR chat,
right.
and we've tried it out, but these tools need to get a little bit better before we start adopting them, or before we start changing how we talk about this stuff with other people, because I just don't want people's first experiences in VR to be these non-private these public instances where they encounter the squeakers and just don't open don't open multiplayer again. But I think we'll change, right? I think our recommendations will probably change over the course of it. There's some really amazing experiences out there. Half and Half. If you never experienced Half and Half, I wonder if it's still online. But it was a whole bunch of games where they voice changed you, so they made you sound like gibberish. Every single
Okay.
person in the experience, everything they said just came out as gobbledygook gibberish. And you had wobbly, silly arms that instantly made you laugh because you were like this. And then you go on and play games like what was it, like tag or hide and seek, I think were some of the games, but it worked.
Okay.
And we can do that in an MMO, right? Like you can have that as the onboarding experience for the first 20 levels until you have proven your worth and can actually get a
I like
voice
that idea.
online to go and actually
You
interact with
earn your
others.
voice. Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that. Ooh, I kind of like that a lot, actually. Um, all right.
Squeakers, yeah. Rest in
Yeah,
peace,
just looking
Orbis. Rest
through.
in peace, Orbis. Lots
Everybody's
of
kind of
people
talking
saying
about
goodbye
that.
to it. If there's any last comments on Orbis, any of those memories,
Yeah,
we invited those memories onto the conversation. We will bring those up if we see any sort of like. I saw someone say they attended someone's graduation inside of Orbis, and that was
really.
a sweet story to
Yeah,
imagine.
I wouldn't doubt that. I mean, I've never heard of it, but like people may have gotten married in there. I mean, people do that. I mean, because again,
Did
sorry,
you see the?
dipped out for a second. Because these worlds become a part of people's lives. I mean, people become invested. So
Well, I can't tell if Adam's being serious or he's joking. Yes, make it so you can't talk to anyone when starting a multiplayer game. Like I get it. It's like I can't tell if that's joking or not. But yes, yeah, right. I make the game about the action you're doing together and the things you do together as a quest, right? And
I agree.
then start. One of the first unlocks should be like you don't grant everyone a voice to just start playing their radio and tuning. You don't require everyone in the room, all 10 people, to go mute the one person as a basis for your,
Right.
I don't know, social network. But um, we'll rate out any memories over Orbis over the course of the show. Our hearts go out to any devs, the people who were behind Orbis trying to keep the lights on. I saw some of the comments saying they were like surprised that it even stayed open as long as it did, which says something to
It's
the
been a
effort. I
long
saw,
run.
what is it, a year ago, there was an announcement from Orbis where they're like, yeah, we're changing the structure around here to
Hmm.
try to make things work, and here we are a year later, and they have to let it go. We asked Meta if they were going to put a notice on Orbis on the Quest store. There is a notice on Orbis on the Steam store that they're shutting down. If you're a member of that community, send us video of the shutdown activities.
Yeah.
The member, we'd love to see those parties that you go to, and the
Heck, I might even
shutdown
show
notice
up
that
at
you might
one.
encounter
Yeah.
in the coming months. We love to look at those things and see those memories. We might show them on a future show as
Yeah.
that actually shuts down in the months ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. So that seems like a pretty good time to transition over to something that never shut down but just got remastered, and
Yeah.
that's Darknet. And man, I was happy to see you play this. It brings back fond memories from the Gear VR, and so tell us about your time in Darknet Remastered, man. I'm chomping at the bit to hear about this.
Yeah, this is cool. So E McNeill, I remember I interviewed him, some cafe down in Orange County,
Mm-hmm.
California, a long time ago. I met with him, and I had already corresponded by email, and we were both Gear VR owners, I think, back in the day, and he had built his product for that system. Darknet being on everything, right?
Yeah.
There was a period there of about, I don't know, 6 months to a year where if you were curious about VR and you wanted to see what a full VR game was like, Darknet was the recommendation. That was the game you pointed people toward to say, okay, this is what you could do with VR, right? This is years and years before Half-Life Alyx. This
Mm-hmm.
is years before uh, even controller, track controller input was a defined feature, or hand tracking was even feasible by the longest stretches of the imagination. Um, this was the period when you were firmly sat in a swivel chair, you were firmly 3 DOF
Mm-hmm.
input, and you had to figure out how to make a game work in those constraints. And so E McNeill built this game, I think, at an Oculus Jam. I remember building so you were talking about building a PC. I built one of my first PCs. I built my first PC, sorry, during the same time period that E McNeill is building Darknet. And so
Okay.
I'm piecing together my first PC to drive a DK2.
Okay.
I'm taking my first money as a freelancer and my goodbye money from the paper I was working at, to go buy a DK2, to buy a PC, and to buy a Gear VR Innovator
Oh,
Edition
that's so
and a
awesome.
Samsung Note
Well,
phone or
yeah, that
whatever, because
innovator was like $400. I remember that.
it
It
was
was like insane.
absurd and awful. And I was doing freelance to pay for that thing, like we all do, that we like it's the perennial experience. But that same time, I'm like trying to find out what software to install, and that's me reaching out to E McNeill and saying, okay, uh tell me more about this. And I did a story and interviews and downloaded his software. But that's wild to have that journey, right? Because
Uh-huh.
that's just the first game of his. He's gone on to do
Oh,
Iron Strike, Iron Lights, a long list
Astreas.
of
Oh, I
very
loved
different
Astreas.
games.
I mean, I'm not even I think I said this when I've talked about this before. I'm not a fan of strategy games, but there was just something about Astreas that was just outstanding. I mean,
S- so Sampler 19, how much do you feel like a hacker in the movie Hackers playing Darknet?
yes,
100%. And that's the beauty of
absolutely.
this thing. Right. So Vision Pro and Quest, the two operating systems we have as of this recording, we're due to get Android XR. There's also Pico, has a fork of Android out there. But in these experiences, in these operating systems of 2025,
Mhm.
we arrange a whole bunch of windows around us of various sizes, and we point at them and look at them, and they basically form a sphere around us of all these giant screens. And it feels exactly like Darknet did
Yeah,
a decade ago. And it's
doesn't it?
wild that, like, even when I'm using the operating systems of today, I'm going, this feels a little bit like Darknet. This is
Oh yeah.
cool. And I'm
Yeah, yeah.
I'm literally doing a little bit of what I imagined myself to be doing 10 years ago.
And it really does just play on all of those tropes that we saw in the late 80s, 90s sci-fi when they would show somebody hacking into a computer network and in a visual way and then you've got, like you said, the whole Minority Report thing where everything's just around you all at once. And I mean,
Yeah.
it just, I don't know, it hit on so many levels back then. And to see it now coming back and remastered and this new generation of players who may not know that these classics existed, back then, to get to see E's work, it's just, I love it. I absolutely loved it.
And E. McNeill being a solo dev out there doing all of that work. One of my favorite bits of software that they built was, if you go play, is it Iron Lights
Yes,
on
love Iron
Quest
Lights.
1 to 2? I can't remember what hardware he had this first running on. It might even have been pre that, but he had a recorder, like a video clip maker inside of Iron
Hmm.
Lights, and you
Yeah,
could
he did.
easily record the whole little duel of you and this other person
Hmm.
battling and make a clip out of it with the whole action scene. And doing that all running on mobile hardware was wildly impressive as a solo dev out there. And I wish we had E down there in the comments, because I want to cover the journey of development. So we are in contact with
Yes.
E McNeill to maybe do that here on this channel. This is a wonderful opportunity to ask you to become a member on our channel. We've done in recent weeks a couple very interesting tests here on our channel, and members like Arlen and Davin and we've got several others. Dunadim, um, who are tuned in today. CJ7. Let's see. I think there's
As I say,
others,
I'm
but
looking through.
members like that. What we did was did a member first stream,
Yes.
and that was wildly, wildly cool because we basically got to premiere things just for those members, do a real intimate conversation, and then we made it more public. And that's our next subject, right, Don?
That is
Um,
this is kind of a good transition because I think we'll probably spend a good chunk of time talking about this because I know we're really excited about it. But yes, yeah,
uh,
we are now cracking the code, so to speak, and with E possibly coming on, we would be cracking the darknet code. Oh, had to go there, and we're really excited for that. So
so yeah, we no promises here, right,
no
on what we're actually
promises.
going to
No,
be able to
we're
do with
working on it.
E and with a whole
Yes,
bunch of other devs, but
some
our
very
inboxes,
exciting ones
yeah,
too.
our inboxes are overwhelmed right now with ideas, and one of the top of the list of ideas that we're working out with devs is member first streams. So the
Hmm.
idea that those members that I mentioned earlier, thank you for your support, but maybe you get to see a dev come on the stream and walk through with Don and I their entire gamography. So starting with their first VR game, spending maybe 20 minutes inside of it with, Don is up here on the TV playing that for game for 20 minutes. Then we put it down, we go play another game for 20 minutes from that gamography. And the whole time the dev is watching Don play,
Hmm.
telling Don to go look at specific things,
They're so cool.
Easter eggs, hidden things, little flourishes that maybe it took him a ridiculous amount of time. That's what we're going to discuss here
Yeah.
from last week's dev stream. And then after we have that discussion where people in the audience could maybe ask questions, we make the whole thing. We write an article about things the dev said. We make it public, and everyone in our comments, all of our readers, viewers out there, get to see that. We did that last week, and it worked really, really well. But we're looking to build on that. So if you're a dev out there with a bunch of published works, we'd love to explore this idea with you. We're working on ideas. We've reached out to E McNeill on this subject, and that's a large library of content to
Man,
go
that'll
through.
be a lot of games to play on that one stream, but I am game for it. I mean, I'm excited at the prospect of just having that live interaction in the moment. I mean, this is gold for us, for the audience, for developers. I know we've talked about this, just to be able to all come together in that private instance and get that feedback and get those stories and find that we can do things like, hey, Don, go over here, do this, look at this, check this out, and things that we may have missed otherwise, from the developer's eye, from the developer's perspective. So
Yeah, so
very
Dunadim
excited.
saying I would love to see E play Tactera the way he intended. Well, it would be interesting to have
Yes.
Don being told what to do live.
Well,
Like
he even talked
that's the
about
easiest way. But
possibly like jumping in with me into
yeah,
one of the games. If
we are
I don't
going to
know, we
get
have to work that
we're
out.
going to get to
Yeah.
multiplayer sessions, but I'm scared of that,
We're
Don.
gonna. I know. I was gonna say we're gonna have to work that out. I mean, as we both are glitching right now. I don't know if your hands are glitching, but my hands are glitching like crazy, which is why I
Oh
keep
man.
holding them up like this.
Our
But
commenters are inspired, as was intended, by E. McNeill. They're
yes.
mentioning Johnny Mnemonic,
Oh
Lawnmower
God.
Man.
Yes.
Those were intentional efforts from E.
Hmm.
McNeill to, pull from those things. And absolutely, Lawnmower Man, when you're near the end fighting and reaching out to the interface, like it's all there. It's a really, really cool experience. So, you can go check out Darknet Remastered on the Quest Store now. It's just it's a very cool trip down memory lane
Oh
to
yeah.
have that experience again and show people
Well,
what the early days of VR was like.
definitely go check out your coverage on UploadVR. You
Yeah.
got a great article about it.
So we will follow up with E in the future and have more coverage of their entire gamography as soon as we can. So no promises there. I do want to pitch, yeah, please become a member because we are already doing some things for members first at least, and Your support means an enormous amount to us over here on YouTube. Also, you can also go to UploadVR.com and become a member there as well, remove ads, and we're working on benefits there as well.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I'm speaking just about YouTube right now. We're hoping to provide some more stuff for members first. We've got the thing I'm pitching to the devs out there, and we see it in our comments here, but there's some more joking. Like, we do a lot more joking in this stream publicly,
This one,
but
yeah.
in private, if we do like something with members only, we could get into some really
Serious
deep
stuff.
things with
Yeah.
subjects and
No,
really
we
give
really
them like
can.
10 minutes to really go on about something and not feel
Absolutely.
like we're going to bore the public people a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, and here's the funny thing. I don't think anybody in our audience, public or private, would be bored by anything that these developers have to say. I mean, I know, as just a community member in the VR community, I want to know the backstory. I love hearing these devs that are so passionate about their work, and these are the people, okay, especially people who have been there since the beginning, like these are the people who made VR what it is today, guys. If it wasn't for these early efforts on the Gear VR and the DK2 and things like that, we wouldn't have half of what we have right now. So to have those people in our ears for just an hour, to me, that is like honor. I mean, to hear their stories, to reach out, to really get to pick their brains on their development journey in virtual reality. So I'm so excited for this new show.
On my recent tour of Elvis with Walkabout Mini Golf with the devs at Mighty Coconut.
We need to get Mighty Coconut.
Yeah, we'll figure out a thing to do there.
Yeah.
But you can strum the guitar, Elvis's guitar,
Yes.
with your golf club. And near the end of the course, there was another guitar sat up on the jungle room, set up there, just sitting there. And I walked up to it and strummed it again. And the dev was surprised. He walked over to it and strummed it again. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't even realize it got in that we put another strummable guitar in our experience."
That's so cool.
And this is not an unusual experience. This is pretty common for devs to hide things or have Easter eggs, or you to not even look like. It's funny that the exit burrito inside Job Simulator, how many people
Yes.
don't even know the exit burrito is
Yes.
there? Or in how many experiences where you literally just have to turn around 180 degrees,
Yeah.
and many people never even do that, and they realize there's something the other way. Those are the things we're going to be able to highlight on an ongoing basis with these developer journeys with our audience.
Dave Bigelow here is giving you a couple more. He says you can strum the electronic guitar too, and the mini guitar in the Hawaii set. So 4 guitars, including the giant one.
Well, so in that tour, we talked about it with the dev, how they wished one person could stand on a fret and another person could strum.
Cool.
Doesn't work that way, but it's now on my wish list for something like 2027 or 2028 for them to go back and add that. All right, well, let's move on from Darknet. Go check that one out. Go check out my article, and you can find a link to all of E McNeill's works over on that article. And stay tuned for us in the future. Become a member. I see our members have overtaken the chat with their comments, so thank you for that as well. And it's time for us to talk about that dev stream a little bit. Why don't you break this down for us, Don?
So, it's if you hadn't joined us last week, or if you haven't watched the first inaugural episode, so to speak, of Dev Stream, which we have here on the screen behind us, and it is also on our YouTube now as a public video, we decided that we should start interviewing developers in a different way, and that is by having me play their game live while they come in currently by voice into the studio until such a time that maybe they might not become part of the cult of Grey Dawn here, but eventually they will be sitting side seat where you see me now, and have them talk about their development journey and interview with Ian while I play the game live on stream. And it's something that I have been wanting to do forever, and we worked for months months trying to get the tech stack ready for this. Beck has done an incredible job out there, just making all of this come together and work and producing it remotely. So we're really excited to see where this is going forward, where we're going to be able to take this in 2025 and beyond. So
Yeah, so we're going to have to start putting a little timestamp on our broadcasts right here so that you know when you are watching our stream, because we are in infinite broadcast now. We've got past Don and Ian up on the TV
yes,
here, creating an if we cover next week, right?
To
now
infinity
we're gonna
and beyond.
We'll slowly be eaten by the past, like what was the name of the thing? The Langoliers that eat
Langoliers. Yes.
Yeah, that eat the past. All right. So as to answer Arlen's question, I think we're okay as long as future Don and Ian don't pop up into the studio right now and break us presently, right? Like the timeline is still secure, right?
The space-time continuum barrier. I mean, it could be like a whole rip in time and space if that happened, and we don't want to go there.
On that note, Captain Pike is my favorite captain on Star Trek.
Yes,
and it's important that his timeline, and his behavior be honored. So I think that's important.
I got to say, Ian, I'm glad you said that, because look, I will publicly admit now, Pike is definitely my go-to captain. Yes, I love the new Pike so much. It is just unbelievable. If I was to serve on a starship, obviously Picard, but hey, Pike.
You don't want to serve on that starship, Don. You know what happens.
Well, I know what happens. I know, but I mean, I want to serve under him.
Don's
just for a little while.
Accident.
I'll come in for a little while, serve, and then move on before the bad stuff. So,
all right, I appreciate this. All right, so we played. What did we play, and what did we talk about with Raphael?
So we actually started out with Airspace Defender, which that is one of our favorite games. I know it's one of my favorite games right now. I know you playing on the Vision Pro, is something that definitely is something that we want to see. So I love it. I just, it's snackable. It's right there. It's in your face. It's vector graphics. It's missile command. So having Raphael talk us through how he created the game. I mean, his whole company formation was just fantastic. I mean, getting that real-time interaction, like I said, with him, and just hanging out and, just kind of talking a little bit about just virtual reality in general, was great as well. And then we moved into their first game, actually, which I thought Airspace Defender was his first game, but come to find out, a student project turned into a company, and that was Tablecraft. That's where he got his co-founder, and they started Not Suspicious, and so the whole story is right there in the dev interview. It's fascinating. I highly encourage everyone, if you haven't had a chance, go after this stream, watch the dev stream that we did last week, so you get an idea of what we're talking about that we're trying to create here.
Yeah, I don't know if we still have Not Suspicious on this current stream. I feel like I saw them in the comments at the beginning of it, but if you have any comments to add after all this, we'd love to read them out. The thing that was interesting here was that came out in this conversation with Not Suspicious was they're very aware of the limits of their software.
Yes.
And so one of the themes that we saw in the comments after looking at Airspace Defender was multiple people saying, I don't want hand tracking. I really want to play this with controllers.
I saw that.
And we, the dev is going to take that into consideration. They're going to think about it. But during that conversation with us and, through it, they made a very thoughtful effort to see, what can I make for the future of AR glasses? What can I make for these things that doesn't need a giant field of view, it doesn't need your whole environment, and can be controlled with hand tracking? So with Airspace Defender, they're thinking very forward, trying to build something that could work on the glasses of the future. And so that's why you don't see the controllers right now. And so
absolutely.
the dev is out there going to empathize with the request that you want that, but you got to also see through the want a little bit to what they're trying to do. And if you don't want to buy it right now, don't buy it right now. The dev understands, right? But
And
like that's the trade-off that we got to cover on the show.
and I was going to say, and what's fascinating is Ian, I never would have even had that thought in my head that he was already forward thinking to glasses like Orion and, what that field of view is going to constrain. And, a lot of times people don't think that way. They just look at the game and they go, oh, well, I wish it did this and I wish it did that, not realizing that some of these developers have they're playing 4D chess here. They're like several moves ahead in their thought process.
Well, and then we've got Tablecraft up here. So this was the second experience that Raphael came and walked us through, and Don was in there inside headset. We've got a full screen. It looks beautiful now to see that relayed from last week. But Don, we had Airspace Defender premiered in our showcase because they sent us the video and we're like, yes. And it was cool. We put it up there. And what Onakazi is saying that it looks like novelty. Okay, that's fine.
No,
maybe that's what they built at first.
Okay, what
that's
I
how
saw
games
immediately
grow sometimes.
I'm not saying that it looked like I don't know if he's talking about if he's talking about Airspace Defender or Tablecraft. I'm assuming Tablecraft. Tablecraft. I didn't see novelty at all. I saw education.
Well, Tablecraft. So Don, break down what Tablecraft is, and I was more impressed with Tablecraft than Airspace Defender overall.
I mean, in a way, I was as well because I have been a huge proponent. My wife is a teacher. My parents were teachers. So I came up in education. I worked for a major university for a long time. I have been a huge proponent in anything that gets kids learning in new and interesting ways. And the minute that I dropped into Tablecraft and I saw that periodic table floating in front of me, and I realized that this game was going to be about construction through different combinations of elements and having to learn what makes up aluminum, what makes up this. If I needed to make a Coke can, I had to find the elements to make that can to give to one of the virtual beings in the space. And when you start getting into the game, you actually see that this is is education steeped and gamified and something that if I was to put this on later elementary age, early teenage kids, that they might actually learn in a different and unique way that's going to stick with them. So that's what I got out of it immediately, was just that. Oh, you're muted, Ian.
Yeah, and so for those that don't have the time to go watch the video, but we do encourage you to go watch the video. Don has done a pretty good summary of it. A couple of the tidbits that Raphael dropped on us during the show. Airspace Defender is a paid game. Tablecraft is a free game. And they're seeing way, way, way more adoption of Tablecraft in just a week or two of time being on the store compared with their Airspace Defender paid game. Onakazi was talking about losing too many cities with false positives because of the pinching interface. Totally understandable that you could have that sort of thing.
I can get that.
Over on Tablecraft, there's a point in this discussion where they demo this. If you look at the video that we've got up on the screen and you see that screen on the other side of the room that displays the periodic table, we talked with Raphael about it, and they had built a local monitoring feature for the app so that you could share classroom-wide the periodic table on a flat screen with everyone in the room and make this connection between what people are doing inside this experience and showing it on the tablet, what element they're messing with and what they're doing with that specific element. It's a brilliant, brilliant idea. And it only came out in this conversation with Raphael because we had this cool combination of Don messing around with the actual software, me looking at something and asking more about it, you diving in based on my question, and then and then Raphael saying, "Oh, Don, can you actually go take this and take it to this person?" Yeah, and it was all just effortless. And yeah, this is so incredible for classrooms. I want to see tablecraft
Oh, I do.
adopted for more. Like I want to see it in more places.
And Arlen hits it right here. And I mean, like I said, coming from a household that I have an educator in my household, an elementary age educator, we desperately need more, better, and fun in our education system. And that is what learning in these environments brings to these kids. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've forgotten from my days in junior high and high school. But the funny thing is I can tell you about a VR game I played 12 years ago vividly because it created a different sort of memory in my head.
Yeah.
So being able to have that sort of recall as a not just I sat in a boring classroom and read this on a book or watched a presentation that was given by a teacher that I was probably trying to tune out because I was more interested in talking to the person next to me. Now I've got this memory of being in this environment, sitting at a table, working with these elements, building things with my hands, and that just for me creates a different memory pathway.
Yeah. I'm seeing Arlen mentioning civics. I'm thinking of I'm Just a Bill in my head,
I'm
right?
just a bill.
We
Yeah.
need
Oh, that'd be
we need
awesome.
that version of a VR experience.
Oh,
And
that'd be great.
what I saw with Tablecraft was them adopt the periodic table for that in a really impressive manner. We spent a bunch of time messing with the little cactus guy that you can
Mm-hmm.
send around the room. There was so another detail that Raphael dropped on us is he's like, turn around and activate this menu.
Yeah.
And he pointed out, I think it was a save system that's in the game that nobody accesses very often. Like it's infrequently used. It's hard to get to in the first place. And you spent a minute or two in it, like accessing the save system. But
Mm-hmm.
Raphael was like embarrassed a little. Like I asked him, how much time did you spend on the save system? And he said that's probably a couple months of
A
work.
while. Yeah.
Like, and it's funny to get that out of devs where like they love the feature, it's a core part of what they made, but at the end of the day they realize, oh my god, not many people are going to use
So
this.
so here's why I think, and it was gold to have Raphael with us to tell me to turn around. Because I think in that type of experience, and I see this a lot when I demo VR, especially to newcomers and even people who have been to my house multiple times and tried multiple things, I still sometimes have to tell them it's okay to look around. It's okay to look behind you and realize that sometimes you called them Easter eggs earlier, but sometimes there's going to just be something behind you that you need to interact with. And if he wouldn't have said, "Hey Don, turn around and look at the little phone booth looking thing and then press the button," I wouldn't have thought to do that because
Yeah.
my attention was so forward focused in the game.
So there were very, very cool things. We had a long talk about how cool these things would be to see expressed on like Apple Vision Pro hardware. We would love to
Yes,
see Airspace Defender adapted. I see our commenters also want Airspace Defender to get
yes,
controllers. I'd like to see Tablecraft taken further. And then this is a two-person team right now. I think they said they had a third
two.
person, but the
No,
third
and
person
a
had to go
graphic
away and
artist.
do
Yeah, they
something
have an
else.
artist. Hmm.
And that's real talk, right? Like that's serious. That is a lot of team sizes are 1 and 2 person teams
Hmm.
in order to stay sustainable through the VR winters as these storefronts figure out exactly what kind of content they want to make available for sale. I see we've got Gamertag VR. Thank you for
Hey,
tuning in
gamer
today.
tag.
Let us know if you have any comments or questions. For anyone that's joining us late into the show, we're showing off our dev stream from
Hmm.
last week where we had Raphael from Not Suspicious join us and play Airspace Defender or watch us as Don played Airspace Defender and Tablecraft. Earlier in the show, we covered Orbus VR shutting down. Don played Crysis in VR on our stream
Ugh,
last week.
so fun.
And we have a wonderful conversation going with our commenters talking about the future and the things we might have. Please hit that like button as we start covering towards the final comments we kind of missed through the show and any last subjects everyone brings up here.
Interestingly, Sampler 19 and hey, Sampler 19, how are you doing today? The only VR I used in my 90s education was a Virtual Boy. I just convinced my ethics teacher it was a visual aid that I needed to wear. So very cool there.
I like that. I like that. A Virtual Boy is like the key hardware my office is missing. Like I do want a Virtual Boy
I
in
do
this
need one
office.
for my collection as well. I mean, I
Yeah.
have now close to 40 VR headsets,
I think
all
the
the way back
price last I
to
looked was $700 for a
yeah,
Virtual Boy.
yeah. They're not cheap if you can
Yeah,
find
no,
them.
that's not. That's why I'm focusing on my Game Boy Antics. That was the one I had as a kid. My friend down the street on the other side of Bakersfield in California, he got the Virtual Boy, and I did play it once, and
I saw it
I
once
felt
at a
bad for
Toys
him.
R Us. They had a demo, and I never actually could get it myself. I was very poor and in my 20s when that came out. At first living on my own, and yeah, but I've always wanted one. Now there, if you want to experience it, I think there's still around. I know there was one back on like the Oculus Go or Gear VR. We're talking about E and Gear VR days. I remember there was a Virtual Boy emulator. So I'm pretty sure there's still one out there that you can probably do in a modern VR headset to kind
Yeah,
of see what it was all about and the red headache of death that you would
yeah.
get from that
The
thing.
better experience would be getting Citra VR up and
Oh,
running, so you
Citra,
can
yes, Citra.
3DS games as they were intended.
Oh
If
gosh,
you
yes.
set it up the right way, you might still experience. You might have enjoyed it more on the handheld, but it's still a wildly cool thing to see
Yes,
that brought to
Arlen,
life.
Virtual Boy was peak VR. Oh, but only if you had the Power Glove too. I mean, if you
Yeah,
could find a way to get Virtual Boy and Power Glove to mesh together, boy, you would have been like unstoppable.
I had the Genesis in that phase,
Oh,
I
I
think,
did
of the
too. I did
'90s. So
too.
I did not miss. I didn't feel like I missed the Virtual Boy when I went and tried it at my friend's house. It was
Yeah, I was all about my Sega Genesis and my Sega CD. Oh man, that was like when I got my Sega CD playing Sewer Shark. Had like Danny DeVito was a voice, and it had like FMV. You could like see like actual grainy little actors, and it was like so fun. We were talking like I was showing some of the emulator stuff that I've been doing lately in Quest. Like Paradise, Arcade Paradise, and things like that, and Arcade Ranger to my wife. And she was kind of saying, man, it's just amazing to see how far all that has come now. And now you can just put me in this little headset and we have a virtual arcade that lives in our house that I can only see when I put on your magic glasses. So,
if someone can figure out how to get the playback app for the Game Boy operator
oh yeah.
running on a Quest, I will write an article about that experience. If I can get the playback app, if you can give me simple instructions or how to get the playback app running on a Quest standalone, such that I can plug in a Game Boy operator and plug in a cartridge to the Game Boy
That would
operator
be great.
and then use a gamepad. I'm I'm ready to play my Game Boy cartridges in my VR head. I'm already doing it.
Yeah, I
I've
know you.
built a wiring system,
Yeah.
but I need it direct. I need someone out there to get those cartridges directly into my headset. Please, please, I need it. I need it.
Well, that'd be so like a cartridge slot that plugs into the USB-C, and you just
Oh,
like plug
you
the
can't even
cartridge
begin.
right
Yeah,
into the
right.
headset.
I'm
That would be
there.
amazing.
Don, there's a WarioWare Twisted. All right,
Uh-huh.
my dream here is, all right,
Okay.
Wario Twisted is this handheld game that had an accelerometer in it, right?
Okay.
Um, and you can get I've got a copy of it over here on my shelf, and you put it in your handheld, and all the games are like this, right? Every
Okay.
single game you have
Okay.
to like press a single button and rotate it. Well, I want to put that cartridge on my hat,
Yeah. Oh
like a
wow. Oh yeah.
unicorn
Yeah.
or something, and then tilt my head around with the
Oh, that would be
cartridge on
wild.
my head. I
That would be
think
wild.
I'm sorry, it's the stupidest idea I've ever had, but I need it. I just need it in my life.
Well, see, there you go. It's not a cash, but Ian has thrown out a bounty. So if anybody can make that happen,
The bounty is I will write about your stupid idea that I also had and we want to see executed.
So that is awesome. That is so fun. And I love experimentation like that. I mean, that's kind of like we talked about mods today. I mean, I have no doubt there are some talented coders, modders, hardware modders out there that can make this happen.
Yeah. Well, what's wild is so you can download with that same Game Boy operator. You can make a ROM, and then you can play that game from the '90s or from, I don't know if it's turn of the century. That might have made it into 2000s, but you can play it with your phone, right? That same game that you downloaded with your phone. But no, I need head controlled games in the spirit of Darknet, right? I need to hack the nodes with my head movements. All right. I think we're done for today. We did about an hour and 20 minutes. I think this is a good target for us in the future. Tune in on Thursdays for VR download and all the streaming that Don is going to be doing on an ongoing basis with Beck out there.
We'll have something on Friday. It might be something really cool. It might be a regular game stream. You got to tune in to find out.
Yeah, and thank you to Gamertag out there, all of our regular viewers, our members both on YouTube and the website. I see Onakazi saying, do it through the HDMI capture hardware, and yes, I do, but no, I want my head mounted WarioWare Twisted. Let's see. Yeah, and people are saying that they're doing brisk business for the emulators. The Mod Retro Chromatic is making big waves.
That is, we haven't talked about that, and that's going to be like a whole other thing. I really think that's interesting how Palmer did the Mod Retro and all that. So.
Oh yeah, well, I'll get my Game Boy camera up on the camera here in some future episode. Please become a member to support our work directly. We will do some member first streams at the very least. But no promises on when we get to do that. And then hopefully we'll have maybe member-only things down the road, but definitely no promises on that anytime soon. Thursday we'll be here with VR Download. Anything else we should tell them about that's coming up soon? I guess Don and Henry will be at GDC, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, so if you are a developer out there and you are going to be at GDC, please hit up me or Henry. We will both be out there throughout the entire week. I think Henry's going to come in a little bit earlier than I am this year. I'm going to come in mostly for the back half and the show floor. So, please, if you have something cool to show us, directly message us. You send it to tips@uploadvr.com. I mean, we want to hear from you. So it should be a fun show.
Yep. Let us know what's going on in the world of VR. Always send us cool videos and interesting information. We'll see you later. Thank you, Beck, for putting this show together. Thank you, Don, for joining us. And thank you all for your time.